The noble truth of suffering, brackets, dukkha, is this. Birth is suffering, aging is suffering, sickness is suffering. Death is suffering, sorrow and lamentation, pain, grief, and despair are suffering. That falls into the category of dukkha, dukkha, plain, straightforward suffering as we mean it in English. Birth is a painful experience. Aging, sickness, death, those are physical forms of suffering. Then mental pain, sorrow, lamentation, pain, grief, and despair. Those would be cases of examples of mental suffering. But we shall now perhaps understand that the word suffering is not a very good translation of the Pali word dukkha. There's no English word that conveys the breadth and the depth of this word dukkha. Literally, du is hard, and k comes from a word that means endure. That which is hard to endure. And this covers a huge range of experiences. Yes, old age, sickness, death, pain, sorrow, woe, lamentation, these are indeed forms of suffering, as the English word means. But now we're getting to a little bit more subtle. Association with the unpleasant is suffering. You've been stuck here now for about an hour and a half. You're going to be stuck here for another half an hour. Is this association with the unpleasant? Are you regretting that you're stuck here this evening? Are you wishing, I wish that man would stop talking and talking and talking. I wish I'd not come. I wish I could go home. I wish I'd have sat at home and I could have watched football on the television tonight. So this is to be associated with what you do not like. Maybe you're stuck in the tube, rush hour. You're crammed in there. One person's standing on your foot, somebody else is jabbing you in the back with their umbrella. Another person is breathing garlic fumes all over you. I want to get out of here. I don't like it here. Now, that might not be suffering as the English word means suffering, but it is unpleasant, it is frustration, it is dissatisfaction, it is all sorts of more subtle experiences than just suffering. And we have the opposite. We have dissociation from the pleasant is suffering. That means maybe you have plans for the weekend to meet up with some friends. But for some reason or other, it's not possible. So now you're separated from the friends you wanted to see at the weekend. And you feel a degree of disappointment. Again, not suffering as the English word means it, but there's an element of dissatisfaction, of feeling, I'm not happy. And then we have the clencher. Not to get what one wants is suffering. How many times a day do we experience that. You're standing at the bus stop. I want the bus to come now. It doesn't. I wanted it to be a warm, sunny summer's day. It wasn't. I wish the people in the flat next to me would stop making so much noise. I want them to shut up. Life is full of frustrations and disappointments. Some minor, some major. But if you think about it, how many times a day do you not get what you want? So this is not gross suffering like old age, sickness and death, but it is still dukkha as the Buddha means it. So that is dukkha dukkha. Viparinama dukkha is the suffering caused by change. One of the hallmarks of the Buddha's teachings is that everything is impermanent, everything changes. That itself is not a problem, that everything changes. The problem is that we resist the change. We don't want it to change. We want the perfect day never to end. We want to be healthy all our lives. We want to be youthful and energetic all our lives. But change takes place. You look in the mirror and you can see your hair is falling out. And you're not happy to see that. So many things we strive to attain, and then they don't last. You saved up your money, buy yourself a beautiful pair of leather shoes, looking immaculate. You're so pleased with them, they're wonderful. And then the third time on, you scuff the leather, you cut the leather, and the leather is now spoiled. What was such a perfect possession has changed. In the long run, everything changes. Relationships change, ultimately, in the end, because one part of the relationship dies. So it's not the problem with the change taking place, it's the problem that we resist this change. We don't want the change to take place. We want things to last and last and last, unchanging forever. And when they do change, then we feel dukkha, disappointment. And I think you can see this in so many aspects of our lives. We think, oh, if only I had a nice house to live in. If only I had that particular job. If only I had this, or if only I had that, then I'd be happy. But it doesn't always work like that. You can have a wonderful job and then the company collapses and you're made redundant. You can have a lovely house and then the planners pass an application for a motorway to be built next to your house. So many things in life change. And so the mistake we make is to try to hold on to things as if they are permanent. Okay, things are only temporary. That doesn't mean to say we can't enjoy them. Yes, you can enjoy things that you like, but don't think they're going to last forever. They won't do. So be realistic in your expectations. Don't think that you can find permanent happiness from impermanent causes. The Buddha never denied that there is happiness in the human plane. But he said this is not permanent, not lasting happiness. It will change sooner or later. So be realistic. Don't expect the impossible. I think it's a very, well for me anyway, it's a very important, very valuable teaching to try to understand that everything is going to change sooner or later. Whilst you have it, yeah, fine, enjoy it. But don't be attached to it. That is the problem. And then we come to the third form of suffering. In brief, the 5 aggregates of attachment are suffering. That is called sankhara, dukkha. And you should have somewhere a little chart of, the top it says samsara. Samsara is the entire psychophysical world. And a being is subdivided into 2, physical and mental. That much even Western thought recognizes the division, physical and mental, body and mind. But now we get to a level which we don't have in Western thought, what is listed as the second division. Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara and Vijnana. These are called khandhas, translated in English as aggregates. 5 aggregates. This is how the Buddha analyzed a human being. We are made up of 5 groups of aggregates. Number 1 is the physical form, the body, which is composed of elements, which we won't go into at the moment, but you can see there are 4 elements, symbolically called earth, water, fire, and wind, all the properties of extension, cohesion, radiation, and motion. That's the body. The mind is broken down into 4 different khandhas. Vedana is a sensation. Sensation arises when one of our senses comes into contact with an object. When you place your hand onto a hot plate, you get a sensation. In this case, an unpleasant sensation. When you place a piece of delicious cake into your mouth, you get another sensation, a pleasant sensation. And there are some sensations which are neither pleasant nor painful, neutral. Then there is perception. This is a process by which we come to recognize something. When you look onto the table, you see a cup. The perception process is what has taken place to enable you to say, that is a cup. It's a blue cup. It's a teacup. It's got a handle on it. You gradually get to know in better and better detail what it is you're seeing. So that is the function of sanya, or perception. Sankhara is a word which is impossible to translate. Some people call it's translated sometimes as volitional formations. And then everybody says, what's a volitional formation? These are mental qualities which accompany sensations and perceptions, the first two, Vedana and Sanya. There are 50 sankharas. Some of them are wholesome, some of them are unwholesome. Some of them are unwholesome. You can have qualities like anger or hatred, ill will, conceit. Some of them are positive, wholesome, like love and compassion. And some of them have a purely functional role, which is things like concentration, determination. There are, as I said, 50 of these. And then vijnana, or consciousness, is the receptacle into which Vedana, Sanya and Sankhara can be placed. Consciousness is what we would call awareness. In the Buddhist teachings, any moment of consciousness has to have an object. You cannot have pure consciousness. It has to have an object, and the object has to come through one of our senses. So we have a visible object, audible object, gustatory object, tactile object, olfactory object, or mental object. Mind by itself is also a sense. So an abstract thought, that's a mind object. You cannot have just pure consciousness. Consciousness without an object cannot arise. If you think about a fire, if you light a fire, it has to be either a wood fire, a gas fire, a coal fire. It cannot just be fire by itself. There must be some material thing associated with the fire. In the same way, there must be an object associated with consciousness. So consciousness is not something which exists the whole time. Perhaps in the West we think of consciousness as being, consciousness is there. We are alert. And then consciousness experiences certain things. Consciousness experiences first a smell, and then a taste, and then a touch. But the Buddha's analysis is that consciousness arises and passes away millions of times in a split second. There's a moment of seeing consciousness, followed by a moment of hearing consciousness, followed by a moment of seeing consciousness, followed by another moment of hearing consciousness. This process takes place so rapidly that we can't see it. We can't perceive it. It's too rapid for us to see. So the Buddha's concept of a being is not of something static. It's of something which is constantly changing. From moment to moment, second to second. There's constantly change, change, change. There's no time when we can say things are static. So this is a different concept from, I think, how we regard things in the West. The being is something changing. There is a place where the Buddha says it's like a mountain river, flowing far and swift, taking everything along with it. There is no moment, no instant, no second when it stops flowing, but it goes on flowing and continuing. So is human life, like a mountain river. So he's showing us a rather different explanation of what you and I are. We're a state of constant change. Moment to moment, there is change. Now, I said there's a third form of dukkha, sankhara dukkha. This is the suffering caused by, the explanation here is, the 5 aggregates of attachment are suffering. See at the end of that paragraph. So this is the 5 khandhas, the 5 aggregates of attachment. So the dukkha, the suffering, is not in the 5 aggregates, it's in the attachment. Sometimes the word grasping is used instead of attachment. We try to hold on to the aggregates. We try to make them into something they're not. We try to make them into something permanent and unchanging. It's like trying to hold water in your hand and stop the water leaking through your fingers. You can't do that. So we are causing ourselves problems by trying to hold on to the aggregates, to make something solid out of them. So we have an idea of or a concept of me and mine, something existing. So this is the third form of dukkha.